Just a fabulous morning here in Fort Worth, Texas at the Texas Motor Speedway. High temperatures today expected to be around 80, a 0% chance of rain, and in fact, the weather looks fantastic all weekend here in Texas. NASCAR Nationwide Series practice just beginning. We take a look at the point standings with just 3 races remaining. Kyle Busch has a 215-point lead over his closest competitor, Carl Edwards. And again, time is running out as Kyle Busch bears down on that NASCAR Nationwide Series championship. There you see him in the garage and about to get into his number 18 Toyota. And good morning, everybody. And I've said this once before. We hope you like us because we're going to be with you for the majority of the day, but we are privileged to do so. So we just saw the point standings, Larry Mack. The bad news for Carl Edwards, Brad Keselowski, and company is Kyle Busch has won the last 3 races here at the Texas Motor Speedway in this series.
Yeah, there's no question in these last 3 races here this weekend at Texas, all eyes will be on that 18 car of Kyle Busch. 7 wins in 2009 as he goes after his very first top NASCAR Series championship. But the hottest guy on the circuit has been Brad Keselowski in that 88 car. Again, he will be leaving JR Motorsports at the end of the year. But in his last 10 races, he has gained 152 points on Kyle Busch, 10 top 10 finishes. So you saw the point standings. I think the real battle is going to be between Brad Keselowski and Carl Edwards. Only 42 points separating those guys. And by the way, Jeff, new crew chief for Carl Edwards for these final 3 races.
Yeah, they're going to make some changes over at Roush Fenway to try to see if they can kind of pick the pace up a little bit. I had a chance to speak with Carl last night. I was in Las Vegas, same as you were, and had an opportunity to see where his mindset as far as these final races are concerned. And right there he is getting ready to roll out on the racetrack. He knows he has a big day today. He knows he has only a few races to get it done. But Carl Edwards told me he's going to try to go out with a bang. If he can't catch Kyle Busch, so be it. He's going to put all the pressure he can on him, and it may help your guy, Brad Keselowski, in the process, because that battle between those two may wind up forcing Kyle Busch to do some things he doesn't want to do, and run a little bit harder and maybe make a mistake. Just remember, the biggest, I think, championship numbers to be overcome and win a championship was done by Rob Moroso, and that was only 125 points. So, you know, these guys have got a tall order. I like the way you said the eyes. It's the eyes of Texas are upon you, baby.
Yes,
all weekend long.
And of course, the battle between Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski got pretty intense at Memphis a couple of weeks ago. Actually, Brad Keselowski got in the back of Carl Edwards. Carl did rally to get a top 10 finish. Looks like to me, with almost 2.5 hours of practice, there'll be 2 quick practice sessions this morning. Kyle Busch doesn't seem in a big hurry to get out there on the racetrack.
Let everybody else kind of feel it out. I mean, I think he's got enough confidence in his group. They've been solid, and like you've already pointed out, how many races has he won here in a row?
3.
Tells me he kind of knows the racetrack.
Well, he's doing triple duty here this weekend, Steve. In fact, he qualified 12th for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race that will air tonight on Speed.
And maybe that's another contributing factor, Steve, of why he decides, I don't need to go out there. The track's the same. It feels the same. I feel like we got the right setup. Plus, we're saving tires and letting everybody else kind of like get the racetrack clean.
David Reagan in the 6 car early in this practice. He has completed 6 laps, and guess what? He is quickest.
He's another one working with a different crew chief this weekend. A lot of changes going on at Roush Fenway. A lot of rumors coming out, not only the nationwide side about who's going to be doing what next year, but also a lot of rumors coming out of the Cup side about changes going on.
Yeah, actually, what Jack Roush did for these final 3 races, he just swapped Dan Stillman and Mike Kelly between the 6 and the 60. Dan Stillman, who has 4 wins with Carl Edwards this year, will be working with David Reagan in the 6, and Mike Kelly will be over there with Carl Edwards.
And he told me also, was with, you know, David, we were doing a discount tire program, I guess you say, up in Las Vegas, big event for them. And David said he's kind of looking forward to it because he hadn't worked with too many different people. And he thought that might be something that would help him become a better driver by working with a different crew chief.
Well, as we said, it's a beautiful day here in Texas, but many in this part of the country have heavy hearts because of the tragedy that took place last night at Fort Hood, which is about 140 miles from here. 13 of our bravest and best soldiers lost their lives, 30 more injured. Our thoughts and prayers to those families affected by that tragedy in Fort Hood. When you dream, do you dream in speed? Introducing the Speed Dream Ride. You'll see new shows, old favorites, and have the chance to win an experience you never dreamed possible. The Speed Dream Ride coming soon, presented by Castrol Edge. Find out more at speeddreamride.com. Down in the garage this morning, helping us out all day, Bob Dillner and Wendy Venturini, and we start with Miss Wendy.
Well, good morning, Steve Burtz. And here in the Nationwide Garage, bright and early this morning at Texas, Justin Allgaier's hard at work with his Nationwide car here. But it was a hard day of work on Monday, this past Monday, when a lot of these Nationwide guys went to Talladega to test the new Nationwide cars. Now, talking to Justin Allgaier about that test session, he said the biggest thing he learned is that he sits too low in those new race cars. It was hard for him to see out of the new cars that they're working on for the future in the Nationwide Series. And the line of sight's much different from the cars they're racing today. So Justin Allgaier had a busy week along with some of these other Nationwide drivers as they tested those new cars on Monday in Talladega. Let's head over to Bob Dillner.
Well, Wendy, Kyle Busch had a very busy week as well. On Monday and Tuesday, he was practicing his NASCAR Sprint Cup Series car at Daytona with a Goodyear tire test. But here he is going for 4 wins in a row in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. He is in the car right now just strapping in. Said he didn't want to get into the first few laps of practice. Thought it really wasn't going to help him. So he wanted to take his time and get out there once rubber builds up on the racetrack this morning and maybe it warms up a little bit. But guys, the funny thing is this particular car in his stable, he has never won. Several victories all over the place in the stable, but this is one car he wants to pull into victory lane before the season's out, and he needs to win in all 3 remaining races to match last year's win total.
Thank you very much, Bob and Wendy. Let's take a look at Jason Keller in that 27 machine. Jeff, it looks like a tire rub, smoke of some sort from underneath that 27.
Yeah, he went off down in the corner here, and you see all of a sudden that smoke starts kind of whispering out of the left front fender. It looks like it's rubbing the top of the left front fender, and that's really not unusual to see that happen here because the cars, this is a very, very fast racetrack when you think about a 1.5-mile racetrack. So I'm not surprised to see a lot of guys not only rubbing fenders but possibly bottoming out some, Steve. So it's a good time to kind of like figure all that stuff out so you can get really down to some fast speeds. Take a look right here on board with Brad Keselowski in the 88 car. Got a little different look, got degree on the car this weekend. A lot of news about him this week going into the 12 car in the Cup Series. And then Larry, like you pointed out, I mean, he's been on a roll as of late as far as the Nationwide cars are concerned.
When the season started, it was so dismal for this 88 car. They only had like 1 finish in the top 20 in the first 3 or 4 races. They came here, he wrecked in qualifying. They had to go to a backup car, ended up finishing 3rd. And since that race, that team has only had 2 finishes outside the top 10. That's the reason he's moved up so close to Carl Edwards, being 3rd in the points.
You know, guys, I hate it for David Stremme in that 12 car, but you know, if you're Penske, that organization, that's smart. You get a head start on 2010, and Brad said this week, what I really want to do in these remaining 3 races on the Cup side is pay attention to how this organization does things.
Yeah, and he's already actually done a couple of tests with the 12 car. In fact, he was at Daytona earlier in the week as part of that Daytona Goodyear tire test that went on down there. But you know, we were talking about guys waiting it out a little bit, letting the track heat up. Little bit of a unique schedule here. This race starts very early in the morning. In fact, 11:45 local time. It's a very early start for this Nationwide Series race.
Just to get you up to speed on the schedule, they practice twice here this morning. They qualify late this afternoon. This is an hour and 15-minute practice. And here's what we're bringing to you, and that's why I said we hope you like us.
Our family will become your family
That's
by
right.
the end of the day.
Have us in for lunch, maybe a break.
We might actually change shirts at least once.
We'll need a snack. Send help. We'll be with you here at Texas Motor Speedway. Glad to be back with you here at the Texas Motor Speedway. That's Andy Ponstein to the 0-2. 46 teams here. And again, 2 practices today, and they qualify later this afternoon.
Yeah, they qualify about 5:35 local time, 6:35. And you know, we saw Justin Allgaier a while ago. He sat on the pole at Memphis a couple of weeks ago. You know, in 2009, we've had 19 different pole winners in the Nationwide Series in the 32 races.
Larry, there's 19-year-old James Buescher, and heard a rumor that he might be in that car next year full-time.
I don't think it's a rumor anymore. I think the release has been out. In fact, he's going to run the full schedule. He's running here in Phoenix, and Mike Bliss will be back in this car at Homestead as Mike continues to try to stay in the top 10 in points.
I thought he got fired.
He did, but he'll be back in it at Homestead. But it was announced on Wednesday that James Buescher will run the full schedule in this one car, and also a minimum of 19 races for Turner Motorsports in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, which he races full-time in this year.
A great opportunity for young James Buescher. Here's Kyle Busch, as we said. He's won 3 consecutive, the last 3 races here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Also should mention that Kevin Harvick, who has 4 wins here, also in the field for this race. So it's a star-studded event at the Great American Speedway.
You saw part of his numbers a while ago for 2009. 7 wins, 3 poles, 23 top 5s, 27 top 10s, and he has led almost 2,500 laps this year in the Nationwide Series alone.
Which is a record.
Which is a championship year.
Absolutely.
And that's what has to be so frustrating to Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski. You look at their numbers, there's no question they're championship caliber numbers, but they're not quite as good as this 18 car.
How about the hood on this race car? I know you guys don't watch a lot of this, but I do. I mean, I'm addicted to watching wrestling from time to time. He's got Raw versus SmackDown, or SmackDown versus Raw on the hood of that car. He and his teammate,
Joey
Logano, were on television the other week and were the guest, kind of like managers, host, or whatever. And they really had a lot of fun, I think, doing it. They look pretty cool. And I think that, they got John Cena up on the front hood. Looked like maybe the Undertaker. I mean, a couple of the deals. Yeah, it could be Larry Mack. He got
from Halloween.
I actually watched a little bit of that. They didn't look very comfortable doing this at all. At all.
Hey.
Not near as comfortable as Hammond would.
Seen as how the Big Show is about 3 of Joey Logano's put together.
He's only 7'1", 500-some pounds.
Well, our version of the Big Show here is Kevin Harvick, Bob, a 4-time winner.
And you know what? Things are looking good for Kevin Harvick right now. He's happy, Harvick, because he is done for this practice session. 2 runs on this car. Was bottoming out just a little bit on the first run, so they made some adjustments. Kevin Harvick said, hey, we have a really fast race car, 2nd on the speed charts right now, so they are going to sit the rest of this practice out and just concentrate on the next one to try to save some tires because, of course, guys, they have that tire rule here in the Nationwide Series.
I'd say there's no question, Bob. When you think about it, this is a 200-lap, 300-mile race. Tires are pretty important, and when you're limited, you don't want to just sit there and just run tires to death in these practice sessions.
Jeff Burton in the 29 cars, we said, a lot of big names in this field. 14 drivers doing double duty, and we have several drivers doing triple duty, as we mentioned, Kyle Busch in the Camping World Truck Series race.
And Jeff was one of the guys who participated in the new test for the new car in the Nationwide Series this past week, and he was very complimentary of the car. Pretty excited about what he felt there. But Larry, I'm going to go ahead and jump out there on this limb and say it's great that it worked well at Talladega. But Talladega is a pretty easy racetrack as far as making a car handle and feel good, in that type of situation. Some of these other places, like here at Texas, is where the real test is going to come into play with that new car Nationwide will be bringing out eventually. So a lot of testing work to be done yet on it, but it had high praises from a lot of drivers.
Yeah, in 2008, they actually did a test at Richmond and at Lowe's Motor Speedway, and then, of course, they did the one at Talladega, and it will be debuted for the first time. It's going to be run once a month starting in July. Its first race will actually be the July Nationwide Series race at Daytona.
The Roush Fenway team had one of those Nationwide Series cars in the studio for NASCAR Race Up. Pretty sweet looking ride.
It really is. They've done a really good job, not only, I think, making the car safe, but also giving a little bit of, I think it looks kind of racing.
It does. Really does I think the muscle car deal is going to create a really neat buzz. It's something new. It's something different.
Brian Vickers in his last Nationwide Series attempt in that car this year, headed to the garage. David Reagan, Kevin Harvick, Jason Leffler, the quickest here at Texas Motor Speedway. New paint scheme this week for Justin Allgaier in the 12 car. He is 18th overall right now. Guys, Penske Stable has quite an array of young talent between Allgaier and Keselowski and Parker Kligerman. Got quite an array of youth.
Again, I say it really is a very impressive group of young drivers, and I think what also makes it even more is the fact that Kurt Busch is not really that old of a guy.
No, not at all.
And yet he's got had a lot of success at all different three different levels of NASCAR, including that championship he's already won. So I think he'd be a great mentor for these guys. And they should be able to, I think, bond and be able to start sharing information. And if they'll listen to Kurt, they'll do really well, I think, as they move along.
At age 31, the elder statesman.
Elder statesman at 31 years old. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Steve, is that, most of the time when you think about a driver being the elder statesman, you would think more a guy in his late 30s or early 40s.
I know a lot has been said about the Robestas Rookie of the Year battle in the Sprint Cup Series, and I think pretty much the trophy can go ahead and be engraved there with Joey Logano. But we have quite the battle in the Nationwide Series between Justin Allgaier and Brendan Gaughan. Only 10 points separate them in that Robestas Rookie of the Year competition. But remember, it's based on your top 16 finishes. So you can improve a lot with a good top 5 or top 10 finish.
And let's not forget, this racetrack here at Texas has been very good to Brendan Gaughan, especially in the Camping World Truck Series. He dominated here at this racetrack and just recently, in the last 5 or 6 years, he's won back-to-back races here, been on a roll. So I expect him to run really strong here tomorrow and put some pressure on Justin Allgaier.
You see the visor on the driver's side of the windshield. Sun's still pretty low in the sky.
Well, it's, we talk about usually having problems with vision late in the afternoon when the sun's going down, but this practice is so early in the
coming
morning,
up.
It's coming up this time instead of going down.
Now, we'll still be here when it's going down.
That's right. You had to bring that up again, didn't you?
Joey Logano, 17th overall right now in his Toyota. GameStop Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing.
Going into 3, I'll go ahead and try to arc it, and I'm actually turning the wheel, and I'm still on the gas. I'm rolling out probably half throttle, and I'm trying to turn, and the thing's actually pushing the nose. And then when I start to get out of gas, and I'm quarter, and then I let all the way out, this thing sets big time. I can get loose right there.
And we've got a lot of battles also going on in the Nationwide Series in the owner points, like that 20 car that runs the full schedule, but the ride is shared. Right now, they're 5th in the owner points. Quite a battle with that 33 car that Kevin Harvick is driving.
Yeah, you talk about great seasons, Larry Mack. Joey Logano running a limited campaign in 2009, but he's won 2 of his last 3 starts, 5 wins overall, as we watch Brendan Gaughan.
Yeah, in his 20 starts, he has 15 top 10 starts and 15 top 10 finishes. So yeah, when he's here, he's quite effective. In fact, I was reading some quotes from Kyle Busch. You can almost sense some frustration from Kyle Busch because of all the 1-2 finishes they've had, with normally Joey Logano coming out on top.
Why do drivers got to complain about something like that?
There's a lot of drivers would love to have as many second place finishes that Kyle Busch has, I promise you.
You got that right. Brendan Gaughan's run 9 laps in this practice session.
Had a good run at Memphis a couple of weeks ago. The Nationwide Series was actually off last week, but he qualified 13th and came home with a top 5 finish.
Brendan Gaughan headed to the garage. We're headed to a break.
Steve, I said he won a couple in a row. He actually won 4 truck races in a row. Thank you, Russell.
Now, NASCAR on Speed is always on with NASCAR on Speed broadband, a free super site for the hardcore fan. Get the best of NASCAR on Speed plus exclusive videos you can't get anywhere else. Log on now to the video section of speedtv.com or NASCAR.com. Michael Waltrip and Chad Knaus and myself, and don't forget Spence. We do broadband hits for This Week in NASCAR.
How does that work?
That's fantastic. Michael will occasionally put his ankle behind his head and all sorts of interesting information.
You call Spencer put his foot behind his head?
Absolutely not. Not even close. Let's go to Bob Dillner.
10th quick is Brad Keselowski so far in this practice session. A big weekend for you, but first of all, what happened to the goatee?
I just got bored with it, man. You know, it was something different, and I had fun with it for a little bit. And you know, it was almost, I grew it just because people said I couldn't. You know, because I had kind of a young face, and people said I couldn't grow it, so I grew it. And I don't know. I got an off week to think about it, and got bored with it, and said, all right, woke up one morning and shaved it off. So.
Listening to you so far, you're pretty happy with this race car, but let's talk about this weekend, Brad. A big weekend for you in the Cup Series with the Penske team. How excited are you for this entire weekend?
Yeah, it's a big weekend for me. I made my debut here last year for Hendrick Motorsports with the 25 car, and it seems like a lot has happened in a year. So got a great opportunity now with Penske in the 12 Penske Dodge, and also another great opportunity with the 88 here at Junior Motorsports. So I feel very fortunate to have these good race cars and good race teams behind me, and hopefully we can make the most of the weekend.
All right, Larry McReynolds, what do you got for Brad Keselowski?
Bob, I think I know the real story. The captain maybe has a little bit of a problem with facial hair.
That's what I was wondering. Larry McReynolds brought up a good point, and I thought you were just pulling the wool over our eyes a little bit. Mr. Penske, he doesn't like facial hair, does he?
He did not say a word to me. He did not. You know, I give him credit because I think he knows race car drivers, you know, if you try to tell them to do something, they'll do the exact opposite. But no, he didn't say a word to me, which I thought was pretty cool. That's kind of a part of why I did it, you know.
Beat him to the punch.
He didn't say a word, and I thought that was really cool. But hey, I don't want to use up the good stuff because we're going to be on trackside tonight, Larry, so we got to save some stuff for trackside tonight.
There you go. Brad Keselowski going back in his car. He's planning on getting back out there near the end of this practice session, guys.
I like this guy already. He knows where the importance is, and that's trackside later on tonight. He'll be on along with Juan Pablo Montoya in our house party, and thank goodness Halloween is over with, and Jack Sparrow and Freddie Krueger and woo!
That was pretty impressive. The man's in the middle of Nationwide Series practice, and he's got trackside on the break.
There's young Trevor Bayne, and I keep saying young because these guys aren't even 20 years old, some of them yet.
Yeah, they can't grow facial hair, can they?
You know, I mentioned Michael Waltrip, but he has nothing but great things to say about Trevor Bayne.
And rightly so. Trevor right now is 13th quickest. He's run a limited schedule in this 99 car. Actually has a pole earlier in the year up at ORP.
Let's ride along with him and see what the number 99 looks like going around the racetrack. And we know that Trevor normally can cut a pretty quick lap.
Not out of the gas much at all. Down this front straightaway, down into 24 degrees of banking. And so many of the drivers say what makes turn one tricky. You heard that? I mean, he didn't hardly breathe it. What makes turn one so tricky is it's flat, 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 and then it slams off into 24 degrees of banking. It's a very tough transition.
You know, and a lot of people talk about, well, this track is exactly like Lowe's Motor Speedway or Atlanta Motor Speedway. They look like maybe an aerial shot that they're saying, but they are definitely different, and that's one thing that gets a lot of these drivers in trouble. There's a lot of similarities if you look at Lowe's Motor Speedway, how you get around it, but it's the banking and the transitions that really get you in trouble. And, you know, they had to do some work on turn 4 when we first came here because it was a very abrupt change. And, you know, Bruton Smith and Eddie Gossage, they said, hey, it's not good for the competitors. They reworked it a little bit, and they've really made this racetrack into its own unique, mile-and-a-half racetrack. They have a lot of sisters, but they're not exactly the same.
And I don't think this place has near the grip that Lowe's Motor Speedway has. We've been racing here since 1997.
Hot, hot, hot summers really have taken a lot out of this racetrack.
Trevor Bayne, 13th overall in the 99 car. Joey Logano, 17th. Let's go back to Bob.
Logano, as you heard from his scanner talk just before he came in after that last run, not very happy with his race car right now. They're still trying to find out a balance, and the entire problem stems from the entry of the corner, both into 1 and into 3, very unstable, and then it shoves the nose a little bit. So they worked on this car in this little break, and they are going to turn probably a lot more laps than a lot of his other competitors here at the head of the garage area where most of the top point guys are, because Joey Logano is so dissatisfied with that car.
Well, he has a couple of starts here in the Nationwide Series car as well as a couple of starts in the Sprint Cup. And he has 2 top 10 starts and 1 top 10 finish.
It's like Kyle Busch was taking a nap there for a second.
Well, I think what he's doing, I think he's actually looking where the car's been bottoming out. I think that they're looking right at where the exhaust pipes are. Right above his head, you see where the exhaust pipes come out the side skirt. And you'll also notice that pink line on the side skirt is an indicator of how much is dragging around the racetrack. So I think he and the crew chief are underneath there right now, kind of like surveying the situation, saying, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that.
So, Jeff, Larry, we hear this a lot about cars bottoming out. How can you adjust a car to keep it from scrubbing off speed?
Well, one thing, you know, you have to be careful not messing up your front geometry or the attitude of the car.
Right.
But it's simply, if you want to run the car that soft, you just have to raise it up a little bit and give it some ground clearance. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing the shock a little bit, maybe a click and closing off the compression so it doesn't go down as quick. There's a lot of little things. What you got to worry about is when these guys start driving it off even harder in the corner and letting the air pressure down too.
You see the little silver tab that has two prop rivets right there, just at the back of that skirt. You can see right there where that's been dragging. That normally hangs down a little bit below it, and you can see how much it's already dragged on that. That's like a wear indicator.
Bob Dillner.
Well, guys, Kyle did say it was kind of just scuffing a little bit in his only run of the day, but what this team has decided to do is they've decided, remember, they went out late. They've decided to just wait until the end of the practice here to make their second run. They don't want to abuse these tires or use them up at all. He's 5th quick on the charts right now. Very happy with a very quick run, but they're just going to chill out here in the garage area. Kyle Busch has been to his neighbors' teams, talking to different drivers and so forth. He's kind of bored down here, so maybe that's why he went underneath, just to give him something to do.
I can't ever believe him being bored, but Larry, I think it goes back when you think about Jason Radcliffe and Kyle Busch. You mentioned it. We're going to be running this race kind of fairly early in the morning, 11:30, 11:45 on Saturday. This next practice will occur approximately when the start of that
Almost
race.
right at that
so
time.
it'll be a great time to really figure out what the track is going to be like, because I understand the weather is going to be identical today and tomorrow.
The weather's high today, supposed to be 80 degrees. Beautiful weekend here in Texas.
Welcome back to NASCAR Nationwide Series practice, and a message when the 60 team showed up this morning. Of course, as we've documented already, the 60 and the 6 teams swapped crew chiefs and swapped in team members. So this morning, Mike Kelly gets a big welcome to the 60 team here in the garage area. Now, nobody will fess up to actually who put that on the cement before the garage stall, but right now Mike Kelly and Carl Edwards talking in the back of the garage stall, very happy with his race car. Carl said the car is really good getting into 3. He has just a little bit of an unstable feeling going into number 1, and there's a big bump there. And Carl is saying when it goes over that bump, that's when it upsets the car. Nothing to do with 3 whatsoever. He says it's perfect, so don't change anything there, but let's kind of concentrate on that turn number 1 area for Carl Edwards, and brand new crew chief for him, Mike Kelly.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Carl Edwards is one of the best at getting his sponsors in. Do you think he'll work in mouse and rack control?
Well, I was going to say maybe a rat wrote that back there.
Take a look at the side of this car. I was looking at it before. It's actually kind of scary, isn't it?
It is.
It'd be perfect for Talladega.
Kind of creepy.
But you know, Mike Kelly, he actually has a couple of wins with David Reagan. They won at Bristol and won at Talladega.
But when you say that, guys, think about it like this. David Reagan is the fastest guy out there with Dan Stillman. Carl Edwards is the 4th quickest with Mike Kelly.
David Reagan has always run well here at
He
this
has.
racetrack. In fact, he got his very first career Nationwide Series pole here a couple years ago.
Matt Kenseth in the 16 car. Greg Biffett will not compete in any more Nationwide Series races this year. And tell you what, Matt Kenseth, also a 2-time winner here. He won here in April of 2004 and then again April of 2007.
It's a good racetrack for Matt in both series. I mean, he just seems like he's adapted to it and performs well each time he gets behind the wheel. And I'm not going to be very much surprised to be able to wind up seeing these Roush Fenway cars wind up battling for the win here, along with Kyle Busch and probably Brad Keselowski.
You know, we've been talking about, you know, a lot of our drivers doing double duty. We talked about Kyle Busch doing triple duty. Even though we know the Nationwide Series car and the Sprint Cup Series car, they're significantly different the way they drive, especially at a track with the speeds here. Also, what we need to think about is when we look at the tire combination, that this is the same right side tire that the Cup cars are running, but a different left side tire.
Steve, I wonder how he handled last weekend after watching Brett Favre dismantled the Green Bay Packers.
And he was pretty excited about it.
You think he's
Oh, no, not Brett Favre. He was.
I was going to say, which one is he excited
He's a Packers
about?
fan, right?
Okay.
Right. All right, let's go to Bob.
Well, let's get to the bottom of whom have the chalk and actually wrote this morning. Carl Edwards, you have any idea?
I have a feel. If I didn't know Dan Stillman so well, I'd say he came and wrote that. You know, Dan's doing great right now. They're on top of the chart with David. Mike Kelly's doing a good job. He's put together a really good group of guys here, and this ortho fusion is pretty fast. I didn't lay down my blistering lap because, as Mike Kelly said, I didn't wear my man suit today for my first lap. But after a couple laps, we're really good, and you know, we're going to park it here, let the sun come out, and let it get a little warmer, see what happens in second practice.
The bump in turn one, really the only problem on the racetrack for you?
Right now, yeah, I go down in there into turn one, everything's great, and then I go bam, 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 you know, and run up the racetrack a little bit. But you know, same bump for everyone, and track's real fast, so, and this car feels really good, so pretty excited about this weekend. We made this change, and right now we've got, you know, our car, the 60 and the 6 are both really fast, and that's what it's about, you know, the whole team getting better.
So far, so good for Mike Kelly and Carl Edwards. Fourth quick, Wendy.
David Reagan out of his race car because his car is so fast off the truck. You decided to sit out much of this practice. You have one more run. How is the balance of this race car this morning?
Our discount tire Ford's pretty fast so far, and you know, obviously a lot of things change with the racetrack, and the Cup cars on the track later on, and obviously the race tomorrow. So we're not going to wear our Ford out this early in the day, but a new crew over here this week with Dan Stillman and some of the Carl's guys. So, you know, just kind of learning how to talk to everyone and how everyone communicates. But yeah, so far our car's pretty good.
How did you guys prepare for this change? Because it is a lot to get down the communication and the lingo that every crew chief and driver has.
Yeah, I mean, that's what separates, you know, from winning races to top 10 and 15 finishes. So, you know, it's good for me being a young guy to get some experience and working with new people. And, you know, certainly we've all got the same pool of information to work on at Roush Fenway. So it's just a matter of how we kind of connect. And I don't know that we really practiced or anything. We just talked a little bit, and this is good practice for the race tomorrow.
Right, well, they are connecting in the garage area as well as on the racetrack. David Reagan's been fast all morning.
And what David and Wendy and everybody was talking about, yes, there were some changes made. Not necessarily a wholesale swap, but a majority of the guys went with the crew chief to work with him so that they had some of the, I guess you might say, continuity remain consistent so they could help both the driver and the team, you know, improve. I mean, that's what they're looking for, was just really to kind of spice it up a little bit and jumpstart some of these things. They felt like that maybe they were in a position where they were getting a little bit stale. So trying to mix it up a little bit, give them 3 races to kind of sort through it, maybe be better in 2010.
I think it's tough enough for a crew chief to swap like that. It gives him a little bit of a comfort level if he has some of his guys that goes with him. That's what Childress has done on a lot of his crew chief swaps.
Kind of how I feel working with you guys.
We're not planning on swapping nobody.
No, high comfort level. No,
at least
swaps.
not today, right?
No, not today.
Welcome back to NASCAR Nationwide Series practice early this Friday morning. Jason Leffler said his car is a little bit too loose for a draft, so he's going to come in and they're going to continue to fine-tune that race car. He's 3rd in this practice session, 4th in nationwide points. Jason Leffler feels good so far, but they truly are working on very small details of the 38 this morning, guys.
And we talk about Jason a lot. You know, he's the highest guy in points that has not been to victory lane. Certainly something that team would love to accomplish with Jason. And of course, we know that Todd Bryan, that owns this team, I think we've well documented. I feel like he's the strongest. They're the strongest non-Cup related Nationwide Series team. Actually just moved into a new shop up in Mooresville. In fact, the old Richard Petty Motorsports building, and talking about racing a number of Cup events in 2010.
Also, Casey Kane running a Great Clips Toyota as a teammate to Leffler this weekend here. It's in the 10 car.
Saw those Great Clips people down in the stockyards last night when we were staying at the Stockyard Hotel. Steakhouse down there, H3s, they have a big group down there.
Whoa.
Down there.
You're staying at the stockyard?
Yeah.
If you've not figured out after 9 years, he is on a different deal than us.
Well, it is Texas.
It is Texas. And how about this? Texas and Phoenix back to back. I bet he brought the whole circus trunk.
Wow.
Well, speaking about riding along, we're riding along there now with Brad Keselowski. Looks like he's going to bring that number 88 back to the garage area and see if Pop Sim can tune on it a little bit more. He's currently 10th quickest in this practice session.
You know, we've been hearing about a lot of guys not running a lot of laps in this practice, trying to save their tires. One guy that has not is Jeff Burton in that 29 car. He has run 34 laps so far in this practice session.
Robert Richardson, 32nd overall. We're on board with him. He's one of 3 drivers in this field from Texas. James Busher is from Plano. Bobby Hillin Jr., great to see him back. He's from Midland, Texas, and Robert Richardson from McKinney, Texas.
Tell you what, a big attaboy to Robert Richardson Jr. from last week at Talladega. Drove for Tommy Baldwin, the 36 car, making his very first Sprint Cup Series start. Stayed out of trouble. Got a good, solid top 20 finish last weekend at Talladega.
Had to pick his way through on that last lap, though.
But he did it.
He did it. David Reagan put the fastest lap up early in practice. His second lap, now working on lap number 16 in this practice.
You know, I've talked about how this track has definitely lost some grip. When you think about it, the track record here was set by Jeff Green back in 2002 at a 27.908, 193.5 miles an hour around a mile-and-a-half racetrack. A lot more grip back in 2002 than we have here in 2009, though.
And it bears repeating, it's going to be warm this weekend. A high of 80 degrees today, and it'll make this track even slicker, less grip.
Greasy.
Well, Mike Harmon, the last of the 46 drivers to get onto this mile-and-a-half Texas Motor Speedway. Mike's completed 5 laps.
Casey Atwood has only run 1 lap, and he is the slowest of the 46 cars. Mike is 45th quickest.
And this is for Hermie Sadler. I know he's out there listening, but I want you to look on the front hood of that car right there. They got the Texas Hippie Coalition.
What?
The Texas Hippie Coalition.
Can you explain that?
No, I'm trying to find out who a card-carrying member is, but I'm sure we get a call from Hermie Sadler, and he'll straighten it out.
And if you need any login, just call Sean Gibson.
Tonight on Speed, just 3 races remaining in the season for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. They'll stampede this mile-and-a-half track. That's 8:30 Eastern, NASCAR on Speed.
They look kind of subdued right there right now, quiet, all covered up. But they're getting ready to make a lot of noise later on tonight.
Yeah, Ron Hornaday leads Matt Crafton by 202 points, and actually Matt Crafton is on the pole for that race tonight.
I'm listening to the Texas Hippie Coalition.
Checking them out,
I can kind of hear it. Yeah, I like that. Might get in trouble for recording rights. Yeah.
Vickers is 12th quickest. He's run a total of 17 laps. As you mentioned, Steve, this is his final start for Braun in 2009. In his 16 starts, he's got a pole and 11 top 10 finishes. Last raced at Lowe's a few weeks ago, finished 4th.
Larry, what is the date of our final race of the year in Homestead? November. Do you have it, Jeff?
Yes, I do.
What's the date?
November the 21st.
Well, I've got good news. On November the 22nd, the Texas Hippie Coalition will
That's
be
actually
playing.
November the 22nd. It's actually the day of the Cup race.
Oh, no. Well, they're playing at the Largo Cultural Center in Largo, Florida. However, on the 24th, the Texas Hippie Coalition will be at the Freebird Cafe in Jacksonville, Florida.
I think we maybe should just stick around, lay on the beach, and go watch them one day.
Freebird, you know why it's called the Freebird Center? Because Leonard Skinner's from Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay. Kind of makes sense.
But they do sing Sweet Home Alabama.
This is true, which I never did really figure out, but great song.
I understand exactly why. If they're anything like you, you're confusing because you can't make your mind up between Alabama and Auburn.
I will tell you this because we have some time to fill today. My mom went to high school with Leonard Skinner, the man that the band was named after. He was their gym teacher. And he told the boys to get a haircut, and they said no. So they were suspended And that's when they went into music full time. And they changed the spelling, Leonard Skinner. But Leonard Skinner was a real man.
Well, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually some pretty interesting information.
Isn't that fascinating?
53 minutes into a long, long day, and I see right now you're
just getting warmed up, folks.
You're saving all the good stuff, I hope, for trackside, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to empty the bucket.
See Morgan Shepherd here right now. Morgan is 45th quickest, and something we want to continue to try to promote, because we talk about all the charities that a lot of the Cup drivers do, but Morgan Shepherd for over 20 years has been doing the Morgan Shepherd charity trip, where you pretty much go up into Galax, Virginia,
Yep.
Stewart, Virginia, and he's doing that again on Monday, December the 14th. And actually, Kelly Pickler is going to be part of that charity trip this year. A lot of great things Morgan has done for a number of years.
Yeah, that is a great program. And take a look at the drivers that are in the go or go home scenario. As we mentioned, 46 teams here, 43 spots.
Yeah, need to bear and remember that unlike the Sprint Cup Series and Nationwide Series, the top 30 are locked in, so it's a lot bigger field that's got to get it in as far as the go or go home compared to the Sprint Cup.
You know, back to Morgan Shepherd's charity trip, this is the first year he's actually going to open it up to the public to be able to make the trip with a lot of the NASCAR guys.
Casey Atwood, 42nd of 46 cars. It pains me to tell you that all that great information I gave you about the Texas Hippie Coalition was with their 2008 tour dates, not 2009.
Well, we know where we could have went and
to the Freebird Cafe. Yeah.
Your heart was in the right place.
I'm on board with
you had great intentions.
the THC, Texas Hippie Coalition. David Reagan still fastest here, Nationwide Series practice.
I just wonder if they're available maybe for a quick appearance on trackside later on.
How about the Speed Rat Party?
I'd be good down in Homestead. That'd be good. Yeah. Call Karen.
Got a fun show on trackside tonight here from the Texas Motor Speedway. We'll be wide open, full throttle. Juan Pablo Montoya and Brad Keselowski. Stop by. That's at 7:30 Eastern here on Speed. See the breeze blowing here at the Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, the Great American Speedway.
See John West Townley right now. John in his 09 car is 36th quickest. It was announced about a week ago that John and his sponsor Zaxby will be going separate ways from Robbie Benton and R&B Racing for 2010. There's actually been a little bit of rumor circulating that he may do something with Richard Childress Racing for 2010.
I read that.
In crew chief Brad Parrott, they have their one top 10 finish in 2009. Actually had engine failure at Memphis 2 weeks ago, finished 40th. He's run a total of 32 laps so far in this practice session. We have about 16 or 17 minutes left in this practice. They'll get a little break, and then they'll have final practice shortly after that.
Stephen Wallace in the 66 car. Of course, that team owned by his dad, Rusty, the 1989 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion.
Comes in here 7th in the points, and after the race at Memphis, there was some altercations in post-race, and the Tuesday after that, NASCAR fined Stephen Wallace $5,000 for actions detrimental to the sport.
Wendy?
Well, Stephen Wallace right now is loose. He's loose getting in. He said he's not crashing loose, thank goodness, but he's too loose to do anything, and he said he's wagging his tail out there on the racetrack. They're trying to snug the balance up. He is 35th in this practice session. Now, if we move on back on that racetrack, Justin Allgaier, who's had a great practice session so far, he's been loose too on landing most of this practice session. He would go on over the bumps and settle on the left rear. He said the changes that they made with the shock change helped him a bit, but he's trying to get comfortable on that gas. His crew chief Chad Walters made changes throughout this practice which have actually hurt him. He's currently 20th in this practice session. They're learning some of these adjustments are not making him much faster. He said the front's not working. He's struggling to keep the nose planted on that racetrack. 1 and 2 is the worst for Justin Allgaier. Steve?
Appreciate that, Wendy. Let's take a look at the rookie point standings. And Larry, you mentioned it's a real dogfight between Allgaier and Brendan Gaughan.
Yeah, because again, if Brendan Gaughan can make some huge improvements on his best 16 finishes of 2009, he could, and finish in front of Justin Allgaier, he could certainly reel those 10 points in a hurry in 3 races. It just sounds like that most of these guys are fighting the typical Texas deal. And I heard Casey Kane, who's had a lot of success here, said it's almost like my big problem always at Texas is getting my front tires to bite into the racetrack. He said what'll happen is we'll give up the rear, but we don't really fix the front. And I think that's the balancing act you're trying to work with here.
And you've already pointed out that there's not a lot of grip in this racetrack. And even though Goodyear is working with these guys by changing that left side tire combination to try to get a little bit more grip to the left side of the car, it's still a big challenge the way you go around this racetrack, and the fact you carry so much speed through the center of the corners. And Wendy, I mean, it's just one of the ongoing challenges that all the teams are fighting with there in that nationwide garage.
Yeah, exactly what you guys are talking about up there right now. It's exactly what I'm hearing on the radios from a lot of these drivers, including David Reagan was one of them. It really said this track has just given up so much grip. You know, the shade in 1 and 2 is really what's hurting some of these guys. They also mentioned, and the spotters mentioned this, the wind has picked up out there. I don't feel it so much in the nationwide garage because we're shielded, but I'm looking at the flags and they are waving pretty strong. So I know the wind out there is a factor out on that racetrack, but definitely the track giving up grip is the biggest complaint I'm hearing.
Wendy, there is no doubt. I'm looking at all the flags throughout the infield, and they are pointing straight down the back straightaway, which would be a crosswind in 3 and 4 with the speed you're running here, Bob, could definitely affect the race cars.
Definitely could affect the race cars, but Larry Mack, I got a funny story for you here. Jeff Burton just radioed to his crew, and I have to paraphrase here what he said. He says, man, these cars are hauling butt here. I forgot how fast these cars were as far as feeling compared to the Cup cars. So Jeff Burton's turned 42 laps on this racetrack, 6 quick on the speed charts right now. And I asked Dan Deeringhoff, you know, a lot of guys, I told him, are sitting out most of this practice session. Why are you running so many laps in this practice session? He said, basically, we wanted Jeff to get the most laps in this practice session so he can really kind of concentrate on the Cup car because they are such a difference here. And that's what Jeff Burton is feeling right now. You know, he knows what the Cup car does. He's got 13 straight top 10 finishes here in the Nationwide Series. But, man, the difference between the two as far as the feel of speed is what Jeff Burton is talking about right now.
Now, Bob mentioned Dan Deeringhoff. That was Dan Deeringhoff on top of the hauler. Dan was actually the crew chief with Clint Boyer last year when he won the Nationwide Series championship. Doug Randolph had been the crew chief for this 29 car, but they have moved him up to Casey Mears in the 07 Cup team. So now Dan Deeringhoff has taken over this 29 car for the final 3 races.
And that's Dan right there in the Holiday Inn shirt right there with the hat on. So just people wondering, with your back to us right now.
Even our graphics department can't keep up with all the changes.
It's got everybody kind of on their toes, and it's not even beginning of 2010.
Jeff Burton has run the most laps thus far, 44 circuits around DMS. And we're an hour and 6 minutes into an hour and 15-minute practice, and there's our buddy Bobby Hillin Jr. Great to see him back. For those of you who don't know, he a pretty lengthy career in the Sprint Cup Series, ran 334 races. He had a win at Talladega back in 1986. Also 114 Nationwide Series starts with 2 wins. He's from Midland, Texas, a former high school football player, and started racing Cup cars when he was just 18 years old.
For the longest, he held the record for the youngest driver to win a race in the Sprint Cup Series. Of course, Kyle Busch, and now Joey Logano, they have now set that record, set that mark. But Bobby, he's locked into the show, but right now he's 45th of the 46 cars. But this car is locked into the top 30 in owner points that Jeff was talking about.
Makes it a little easier right there for him, doing his limited schedule. Here's a guy that's looking to try to get a full-time schedule next year, Jason Keller.
Talked to him the other night, Jeff. He's not real sure what 2010 looks like.
Well, unfortunately for Jason, to me, they haven't been as competitive as I think he'd like to be. It's the reason why I think he's leaving this organization. Still a lot of rumors that there may be somebody else in his car before the end of the year. Just wonder what's going to be next for Jason Keller in his career. Again, he's a great race car driver.
10 wins in the Nationwide Series, finished top 5 in points several times.
He's sitting 8th in the points right now, but they have no top 5 finishes in 2009. And Jason actually sat on the pole here at Texas back in 2003.
You know, I remember we talk about the mindset that drivers have at particular tracks, whether they like that track or not. And I remember Jason, that particular year, said, you know what, Steve, I've never really liked this Speedway, but I've thought about it. I'm coming in here. I'm just going to be aggressive. And you know what? Lo and behold, he sat on the pole. I said, I guess it worked.
And I think with the grip the track had back then, I mean, you still have to be pretty aggressive with it, but I think back then you really had to be aggressive. You had to put both hands and feet up on the steering wheel.
Yeah, you really do. And again, I think that's a great testament of really what race car driving need to be like. This is a mental game as much as it is a physical game. You've got to tell yourself, you got to convince yourself, just like this young man here, Trevor Bayne, that when you drive this car off in the corner at almost 200 miles an hour, that it's going to hook. It's going to stick where it's supposed to. It's not going to feel the greatest in the world. It's going to slide a little bit, but you've got to have that confidence to be able to keep that pedal down, turn that steering wheel, and get around the racetrack.
You know, looking at Trevor Bayne, the thing he's really been on his game in 2009 is 13 starts. I mentioned the pole at ORP, but he has 10 top 10 starts. The thing they want to start improving on is getting more top 10, top 15 finishes. He has 2 top 10 finishes so far this year.
Jimmy K. Hicks informs me Bobby Hillen was 22 years old, 1 month, 27 days when he won his Cup race at Talladega.
That's been reduced by about 4 years now.
Yes, it has. We'll be right back to Texas Motor Speedway.
Possible problems for the 38 and Jason Leffler at the end of this nationwide practice session. Jason Leffler said he had a vibration that picked up on that race car. That vibration was not there at the beginning of the practice session, has just now picked up. So Scott Zipadelli, the crew chief, has brought it in, put it up on all 4s. They're changing the drive shaft on this car between the practice sessions. They're going to check the motor mounts. They also took the 4 tires out, and tire specialist Kevin Bellacourt has taken them to get them rebalanced to check some checking out some things right here. We're going to talk to Jason Leffler. Jason, what were you feeling in the race car and that vibration that picked up towards the end today?
I don't know. It's a harmonic, you know, whether it's drive shaft or transmission, but I have a carbon fiber seat, and this is like one of the first few weeks I've run it, so it could be just something to do with that. But they're going to go through everything, rebalance the tires, check all the drive line and everything. But the Great Clips Camry's really fast, so I'm excited. And Arrington engine's running great, a lot of horsepower. Guys are doing a good job as always, so looking forward to good things.
How much has this track changed in the practice session? We can tell it's given up grip.
Yeah, it sure has. I mean, the wind's blowing now, and then obviously the sun and your tires wear out, so it's getting slicker. Track conditions are getting to more where it's going to be in the race tomorrow, so we'll stop and then go out the next session. It'll be a better sign of what we got tomorrow.
Okay, thanks to Jason Leffler, who is 4th in nationwide points.
Yeah, the only shade we have now.
Brad Keselowski, 10th overall.
And he's pretty happy with this race car, but he did talk about the wind just a few moments ago. In fact, it's really blustery at this point in this practice session with just about minutes ago. And he said, you know what? I have to hold on for everything I got. I don't think I can hold my breath any longer. So far, Brad Keselowski likes his race car 10th quick, but he's still struggling with the balance on this car, and a lot of it has to do, it's a loose condition, but a lot of it has to do with the wind, guys.
And you know, one other thing that I have noticed, and of course we had a couple of NASCAR Camping World Truck Series practices here yesterday, and now we're well over an hour. They have not moved off the bottom of this racetrack yet. I've got to believe eventually that groove, especially once the Sprint Cup Series cars gets into their practice, getting ready to race, by the time these guys race tomorrow, there will be some grooves moved up the racetrack.
Well, I know we're coming up to the conclusion of this first practice, but we've got a final practice coming up pretty quick, Steve. And I think if you're going to see that second groove start to move a little bit, it'll be during that practice. We'll start seeing these guys widen out a little bit, because they've already talked about track temperatures are going to be ideal to represent what we're getting into tomorrow.
Kevin Conway has 30 laps on this Texas Motor Speedway, 33rd overall. David Reagan will have the fastest lap.
You know, as we mentioned, 46 cars here, all of them practice. This is just practice, but the 3 cars that would be in trouble right now would be Josh Weiss, Morgan Shepherd, and Mike Harmon.
We'll be headed to NASCAR Live in about 20 seconds. Johnny Roberts will have that, along with handsome Hermie Sadler and Randy Pemberton. We'll be back at 10:40. By the way, there's a producer-directors meeting at the speed stage in case you're nearby.
I'm a little bored.
Okay, let's head down there.